Good evening, everybody. This is the second hour of Crime and Justice. I'm Jesse Weber, in for Ashleigh Banfield. Tonight, a dark new explanation for the death of an Idaho man. He was thought to have drowned in a lake accident that may have been no accident at all. Lori Isenberg vanished on a supposed sunrise cruise with his wife, who told police that he fell overboard fixing the motor before he disappeared in the water. Lori told investigators she went looking for him, but eventually she came home without a husband. And Larry wasn't seen for 2 weeks until someone found his body in the lake. And this was a lake, a body chock full of diphenhydramine. This is the active ingredient in Benadryl, at least 7 times the recommended dose. And Lori had told police that he'd been sick, but Larry's friends and doctor disagree. And now police want to talk to Lori again. But guess what? Lori is nowhere to be found. Now a widow after an allegedly perfect marriage, but some say there were marital issues lurking beneath the surface, not to mention financial issues, like the fact that Lori was fired for allegedly stealing $500,000 from the nonprofit she worked for. Joining me now, Nate Eaton, news director at EastIdahoNews.com. Dr. Devi Nampiapamrampul, clinical associate professor at the NYU School of Medicine. Tom Fuentes, a CNN senior law enforcement analyst and former assistant director of the FBI. And defense attorney Kenya Johnson. Thank you so much for everybody for being here. Dr. Devi, want to start with you. Allergy medication. I've taken it. People have taken it. Can you die from it? In what manner could this have been taken, put into his system for it to cause a fatal overdose?
So the allergy medication, the way it works at first is that it can dry up some of these secretions. It can help you with allergies and cold symptoms. But if you take too much of it, it can start to affect, other cells in the body. So basically, it can cause your heart to start to beat abnormally. It can also affect your muscles, can affect your thinking. You can become sedated and confused. And all of those things together, if they progress, can also cause you to go into a coma or to develop seizures.
Okay, but he had no evidence of a stroke. There was no evidence of drowning. Healthy guy, was walking a lot with his wife, seemed to be in all good condition. You ask his doctor, healthy guy. How does this get into his system this much? And again, there was no sign of any of this, which seems to be a symptom of an overdose.
Well, there are a couple of things to think about. So sometimes, a person might have chronic allergies and take these medications to try to manage them. So in that case, they might develop a tolerance, and you might see a higher level than you would expect in a person who takes them more often than otherwise. The other thing is these medications are also used as sleep aids. So if someone's traveling and they have trouble sleeping, either from jet lag or the change in environment, they might also use these medications. And the third reason they might use it is for motion sickness. So if he had an issue where he was concerned on the boat, perhaps he might have taken it by itself for that reason.
I want to bring on Nate Eaton and talk a little bit more about this. Nate, I'm confused. The timing of this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, given what happened here in terms of what she was actually arrested for and the 40 counts of forgery and 1, grand theft. What's going on here in terms of the timing?
Well, it was just a few hours after word got out that she had been fired from her job, that she was being arrested for these 40 counts, that Larry and Lori went on this boat, and Larry vanished. So news breaks that Lori's been fired, that she's under investigation. They decide to go on a breakfast cruise. It was winter. Remember, this was February, so it's cold outside. They go on the boat anyway. They say they're going to get breakfast. Larry falls in the water. According to Lori, she waits 2 hours to call the cops. When she gets a hold of him, they say, "Why'd you wait so long?" She said, "I didn't have my phone. I thought his phone was on him." And she's got a bloody nose. She said she got that bloody nose trying to help him, trying to get him back in the boat. Lori had worked for a nonprofit organization helping low-income, middle-income people get into housing. And she had made an arrangement with the board where there were basically no checks and balances. And they're alleging that she was able to get $500,000, $500,000, and from that organization directly into her. That's the allegations. That's how she was charged. And then her husband goes missing within a matter of days.
I could speculate. I could say a lot of things here, but what about the will? Wasn't the timing of the will also a little strange here? Now, I should note, Lori has not been charged, and her daughters have not been charged in connection with this. They're not even suspects, but this investigation is going, and they are part of the investigation. So what's going on with the will? Let's talk a little bit more about that. We're talking about Larry's will, because both of them came into this marriage with other children. But the will, the timing of that seems a little precarious.
You're right. So Lori has 6 children. Larry has 2 children. In January, there were changes made to Larry's will by hand, not typed out, not with some attorney present that we know of, but by hand. Somebody went in and changed the will so that Lori's children got 80% of whatever's left. Larry's children got 20%. This was in the midst of all of the fraud allegations, all of the issues with Lori's job, and just weeks before Larry vanished in the water.
There is a series of emails that Lori wrote to her employer, basically confessing to what she did. The first one is where she's going to say that she's going to show everything. I want to put that up. I want to read a series of them for our viewers. The first one is where she says, I will show you, here you go. She goes, I will show you everything I did, and I can pay all of it back as soon as I can sell my home. The next one is talking about her being a horrible person. I'm a horrible person, but please, please, please don't punish Larry's family and his memory with this now. The next one. I need to be punished for what I did. And then the last one. Listen to this one. I'll pay everything back and accept my punishment without causing you the need for long investigations. Just please don't punish my family for what I did. You read those messages, consciousness of guilt, basically confessing. How will this play in her courtroom?
It can also be viewed as a mother who's looking to protect the family and the reputation of the family. This case, Jesse, is going to fall on accident versus intent. Whether the wife purposefully dosed her husband and gave it to him lovingly with a spoonful of sugar, or whether she hid it in his amaretto on the rocks. The question is going to be whether she intended to give him a lethal dose. And at this time, the jury's still out, if I may, to say whether he ingested this lethal dose of this active agent, or whether the wife, in fact, intentionally dosed him with this.
You know, she's not a suspect. I want to make that clear. She's not a suspect, and her children, her daughters, are not suspects. But there's an interesting thing when you read those emails. She talks so much about, I don't want my family involved. I don't want my daughters involved. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. The problem is, Tom Fuentes, she went missing. No one knows where she is. She didn't show up to her court appearance, which means the police have to start looking into the daughters, and they want to get the cell phone data from the daughters, correct? What are they hoping to get?
The police have to treat her now as a fugitive and try to track her down. You know, just adds to the appearance of, you know, bad activity on her part. And again, there's still a long way, even with all of this circumstantial evidence and all of this suspicious activity and her financial dealings and the will being changed and the manner of his death. All of that is still a long way from proof beyond a reasonable doubt in a murder case. So they're going to still have a very difficult time to say that she actually killed him, you know, that it was her hand that did it, that she somehow managed to get the Benadryl into his system so that he would die and she could toss him overboard. That's going to be very hard.
Okay, so how do we find her? What are the steps in going after her? I mean, she's not a career criminal, for all that we know, but she's on her own. She's out on the lam. What's that like to try to find someone like this?
Well, a typical fugitive investigation, you know, all the measures they would normally do. Most people go contact a family member. It's very difficult to get very far. If you use a credit card, that can be tracked, or you use a vehicle. Go to family, friends, colleagues, former neighbors, anybody, because at some point you're going to need money. You're not going to be able to go to an ATM machine. You're not going to be able to get groceries and get gasoline and all of that without leaving basically an electronic trail. And we don't know how much cash she actually has in hand to go on the run like this and avoid electronic detection. So it's, you know, typically the police will be able to track her down no matter how far she may have gotten at the moment.
So you're saying it's only a matter of time. Let's go back to Dr. Devi. I'm still confused, so help me out. I'm not a smart guy. You got to help me out here. So apparently, if you have an antihistamine in your system, he was saying that he wasn't feeling well in the days up, maybe had the flu. Is this something you've seen in your practice where somebody's sick and they take an overdose of medication? Is this possible? And have you seen somebody in this kind of situation where they're operating a motor vehicle and under this? I'm trying to make sense of what's going on here. Please help me out.
Unfortunately, I have seen that scenario. I mean, people don't take medication on purpose to overdose, right? That can happen accidentally. But sometimes people take more than the recommended dose or the prescribed dose. And sometimes also the levels can be altered if they've been taking it for a long time. So they've built up a tolerance, and then they take more than what they should. Now, in this case, because he was found in the water, sometimes there could be a sampling error where they need to check the levels in a couple different areas of the body.
It sounds complicated, Dr. Devi. It really does. Thank you so much. Nate, thank you so much. We appreciate it, both of you.